into the ruler's law, and then they had to work to get back to people's law. And they finally learned how to get to people's law. But before they learned how to get to people's law, guess what? Most of them ended up. They ended up dead in graves. Okay?
Because they starved to death?
They starved to death.
Because when they do socialism, nobody wants to do anything because they think everyone else will do it for them.
Yep. And so a lot of them started dying. So finally, their ruler became a good ruler. And
Say
guess
his
what
name again.
What?
Say his name again for this video.
I can't remember his name, but I think it was Bradshaw.
I think so.
I think it was Bradshaw. Anyway, the ruler, no one's...
They all went over there.
The ruler said, this is not working, we're all going to die. So let's go back to people's law. And so he said, he was a good ruler, and he said, he was like King Mosiah. He said, let's go back to people's law, and everybody does their own thing. And they have freedom. And if they want to work hard, they can work hard. If they don't want to work hard, they can all die if they want. But at least they get to choose. So guess what? So when the people got people's law, when people got people's law, they can choose what they wanted to do. If they wanted to die, they would not work, and then they'd die. If they wanted to not die, then they'd work, right? And when they worked, they got to be prosperous, and they got to vote on who they wanted to have as their leader. Well, guess what? Many years went by, and the people in England had a king. Remember the king? The king decided, hey, I need to be the king over the people in America too. So the king took away people's law from America and set himself up as the king. And so did the other kings. And so the king of England said, I'm in charge of America, and you have to obey my laws. And the people in America said, no, look, we'll be your friends. We'll be happy to get along with you and be your friends. But you got to let us have our own freedom. You got to let us have our people's law so that we can decide what we're going to do. But the king said, no, you people are all traitors. I'm going to kill you. And so he sent his army men. So he sent his army men across the ocean to America to take away Americans' freedom. So guess what? Remember how I asked you who wrote the Declaration of Independence? It was Thomas Jefferson. And the reason why Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence is because the King of England was taking away America's people's law and making them so they didn't have any more freedom. The king was taking all their freedom away. And Thomas Jefferson said, no, we don't want the king to be our leader. We want to be our own leader. We want to have people's law. And so he wrote the Declaration of Independence. And 50 people signed their names to the Declaration of Independence, which said America would be free to do their own law and their own government. And you kids have ancestors that were in that place, and they signed the Declaration of Independence.
Who was it?
But if you want to know who it was, ask Grandma Grapes. She knows all the ancestor stories. Grandma Grapes, she's at her house. Grandma Grapes has all the stories about who our ancestors were that signed the Declaration of Independence. Some of the people that signed it were John Hancock, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, because he wrote it, and a bunch of other good men. And we call these men the founders. We call them the founders because they started America, and they put America under people's law. Now they had a name for people's law. What'd I call it?
Peepers.
You're trying to see if we were listening.
Yeah. People's law.
Peepers.
The founders called it republic.
So that's why they call us Republicans, maybe.
Well, we're called Republicans because a bunch of people decided we need to follow the law of a republic. Whereas the other people said, no, we need to follow the law of a democracy. But the founding fathers started up. Yeah. When the founding fathers, when the people who started America started it, they wanted us to have people's law, and they called it republic.
Some people think we have a democracy.
Yeah.
Democracy, and they repeat it over and over again, so everybody else
They're
can.
trying to brainwash us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, here's what the founders taught. The founders said there's a pendulum going back and forth, back and forth. It swings from no law to democracy to people's law and a republic to kings and dictators and bad guys. And then it swings back the other way. And then it swings back and forth.
And this is the one we like right
And the
here.
founding fathers said, why don't we stop the pendulum right in the middle? Let's stop it right here where we have people's law. And the benefit that they said was this. If you have too much law, you'll have so much law that the ruler will be able to take away all your freedom, and he'll ruin all your rights, and you won't have any protection at all. But if you go the other way, too far, with no law, you'll not have any protection.
It'll be like the Wild Wild West.
Yeah. And you won't have any way to protect yourself. Unless you're really strong, and then some other strong guy is going to come and beat you up. Right? But the founding fathers said, let's stop right in the middle, where there's enough law to protect us from this, but not too much law to take away our rights. So the founding fathers said, let's stop the pendulum in the middle. Let's have a republic. Well, the King of England didn't like what the founding fathers did. So they fought a war, and they fought America. And America was terrible. There was fighting and bad guys attacking and all sorts of terrible things happening. And remember I said who the first president was? His name was George Washington.
He was
Before he was the president, he was the army man trying to save America from the English. And he was trying to fight the war to stop the English from taking away America's people's law. The English were trying to turn us back into rulers' law.
And they wanted to conquer America. He wanted America for his own. Didn't he? He wanted to own America. The king.
Yeah, he wanted to own and
He's
control
a conqueror.
America.
Conqueror.
And he says, well, I have a right to control America because the Pilgrims left England. They came to America and they were from England, so therefore I, the king, owns all
Isn't that
the Englishmen,
ridiculous?
and therefore I own all of America. And also he says, because Jamestown was founded by Englishmen too, therefore I own America. Anyway,
Wow.
That's a stretch,
he wanted
isn't
to
it?
control all of America.
Doesn't he know that's why they left Europe? They wanted to get away from him?
Yeah. The thing is, they left America because they wanted to get from his. away
I
from
meant
his
they
grandpa.
left England.
Yeah, they left. Yeah, I said it wrong.
And
They
I
left
said it wrong.
England because they wanted to get away from the king's grandpa, who was a king too.
Oh, yeah, because it was earlier. That's
yeah,
right.
it was earlier, and so they formed America with people's law, but the English king's son kept on taking over, and then his son kept on taking over, and finally Thomas Jefferson said, let's get America free from England. So George Washington helped keep America free, but it was a really hard job.
Because not a lot of people supported him.
A lot of people in America wanted to have the king to be their leader.
Wow. What's
But
wrong with people?
George Washington wanted the people to be able to choose.
They don't like being
their
self-reliant.
leaders. There was only about 3% of the Americans who wanted freedom.
It feels like about nowadays. No, there's more. that want
3%
freedom.
wanted freedom. Maybe about 50% didn't care. And about 40% wanted to have the king in charge. And so there was fighting going on, and it became more like this during the war. it became like no law. Whoever was the strongest was the winner of each war and each battle. And finally, George Washington was so scared, he said, we got to have some help from heaven to be able to keep our people's law. And so he prayed. And Heavenly Father helped him win the war. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, people want freedom. But it's the people that haven't lived in a place where they haven't had freedom. Where, like, people here, we have freedom. And so they want freedom to do whatever they want to do. But they don't realize that if they give the government too much power, they're going to get their freedom taken away.
Yeah, it's like this.
So it's like the people that haven't lived that way don't realize.
They don't understand it.
How it would be to have, like a king come and take away all their freedom. And they want the government to be able to do things for them.
Yeah.
But still be able to do whatever they want.
Yeah, they want both.
And that won't happen.
You're right.
Yeah, they lose their freedom.
Yeah.
Like the people who come here for freedom want to vote in a socialistic leader, and then they're going to lose their freedom. They've got to be educated.
Yeah.
So
That's
Sorry,
that's good.
So
It's
remember
good.
the pendulum.
Good.
Remember the pendulum.
That's a good point.
The founding fathers, the people who made America into a people's law, said you got to keep the pendulum here in the middle and not let it go clear over to this way or clear over to this way.
People's law, everybody.
We need to keep it right in the middle. So, like I told you, America was having a war with England, and it was terrible. There was fighting going on and all sorts of terrible things happening, and George Washington was so scared, he prayed for help, and Heavenly Father helped him. And Heavenly Father helped him win. But then guess what? America was still terrible. Everybody was poor, and everybody lost their farms and their money, and it was a terrible situation. And George Washington thought, what can we do to save America? Even though we won the war, the English soldiers are still in America. Even though we won the war, they're still here. And all the people are fighting among themselves. See, they're fighting. A lot of people are fighting. And George Washington wanted a miracle. And guess what? A miracle happened. A miracle was the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States was a piece of paper on which the Founding Fathers wrote down the rules for America. And they wrote it down, and I call it the answer to prayer. Because the Founding Fathers said that they got their good ideas from studying the Bible and reading about the gospel, and reading about Heavenly Father and Jesus, and about learning how to have a people's law instead of having these other things. So they figured out, and they worked on it, and they wrote the Constitution to be the people's law, so the people would have enough government to protect them, but not so much extra government that they would lose their freedom. So they just were balanced in the middle.
I love balance.
So they were balanced. And so they started the Constitution, and they wrote down the rules, and we'll get into the rules a little bit later. They wrote the rules down, and then the Founding Fathers said, okay, now we've got the people's law set up. Now, what are we going to do so that people can get rich? How can we help people so they'll be able to earn money and have property? Because remember the war happened and lots of people lost their farms and lost their land and lost their money and their families were scattered and lost and a lot of people got killed and were all destroyed. They wanted to find a way where the people could become rich again. And so they started reading books, and one of the books they read was a book written by a man named Adam Smith. And Adam Smith wrote the book called The Wealth of Nations. And the book was a really thick book, and it was really complicated. But my cousin, Cleon Skousen, analyzed that book, and he wrote it. He digested it into a real short a real short sentence, or not sentence, a real short book to explain what Adam Smith was saying. And basically, Adam Smith was saying is, if you want your whole nation to be rich, then you follow these rules. Blah, 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 blah. Well, whatever they were. And if you want people to be wealthy and happy and have enough money, then you set up a government that follows these rules. Blah, 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 blah. Okay? Yeah. So, if you follow those rules, your people will become wealthy. So the Founding Fathers said, we like that idea. You know what that idea is called? I'll write it down here so you guys can read it if you ever want to read it. It's called... how do you spell it? Maybe I spelled it wrong.
You probably did it good.
Free enterprise capitalism. That's what the Founding Fathers set up, is free enterprise capitalism. This is supposed to be an I. Capitalism. And so they set up free enterprise capitalism, and they set up people's law, and that is what happened. And then guess what? 5 years after that happened, George Washington, remember how he had been so scared for America and how sad for America? 5 years after they started this American People's Law system, George Washington said, America is so much more wealthy, and America is doing so much good, and America is becoming great again. Well, you might not have said again. America is becoming great, and America has enough law to protect us from these bad things, but America doesn't have too much law to take away our freedom. America is in the balance, in the center. The pendulum is resting here. Now, every once in a while, it would start to swing one way or the other.
And that's what's happening now.
But because of the Constitution and free enterprise capitalism, it stayed pretty close to the center. Every once in a while, they'd have a problem, but the free enterprise system of capitalism and the people's law kept it pretty close to the center. And that's what we want to talk about, is the balanced center.